Can you see that? There we go. Hello everyone, this is Lucas, and today I wanted to talk about these little toggle switch things that you can find in all kinds of devices. This one in particular I believe came out of a heater, and it is 16 amp, 125 to 250 volts AC. And today I used one of these to replace a trigger switch in a impact drill, 120 volts, 60 hertz, 5.5 amps, so it's good, more than rated for what I'm using it for. A little disclaimer, before you go and do anything that I do in this video, note that I'm not an electrician, and you should be abiding by local electrical laws and standards and all that kind of stuff, that when you're working on this kind of stuff, you don't zap yourself, or you don't give somebody something that could potentially zap themselves and kill them or whatever else. So whatever I do on this video is mostly for educational purposes. Don't do this at home. What I do with these things I use for my own personal things, and this drill is probably going to be used in another hack video coming up, so that's the why I do this kind of stuff. And I have a lot of experience doing this kind of stuff, so I feel comfortable doing it. But if you don't feel comfortable around electricity, or you don't have any clue, don't do stuff like this. Just use my video for its educational purposes, and yeah, be safe ultimately. So now that I got that out of the way, I'm going to show you how I did this. So in this particular drill, it turned out to be this little switch here, little trigger switch that had gone bad. It feels like it's mechanically jammed. I think the plastic in there busted, or sliders or contacts or something like that's jammed in there, and I don't want to play with it. It's not worth my time, and it's a sealed unit, so I really can't get into it anyways. But I know from a miter saw repair that I've done in the past, and I will do that on part 2 video of this. I'm going to show my miter saw and this drill. I've used these little toggle switches to replace the trigger, and I've done it well enough that my miter saw is actually now my favorite miter saw, even though it has a trigger that's made out of one of these things. How I did it was pretty simple. If you can see right there, I sprayed the little connectors here. I soldered wires directly on them, and when I solder wires, I just use these super fuel torches. I don't know if you can see that flame or not. It's kind of hard to see. And I'm out of gas, so there's that too. But I use these just these super fuel lighters I pick up from the dollar store. I usually get about 2 or 3 soldering jobs just out of one of these deals. And I just use flux, which I got here, some flux, lead-free solder paste, and just some solder. And I just solder the wires directly to the terminals. Make sure that they're not touching anything, and then wrap them with electrical tape. This one here I didn't bother, because I mean, I got it in such a way in the casing here, neither one of the solder points that I made is connecting or touching anything, and they're going to be covered over in tape here as well. If you can see, the switch here is right here. I don't know if you can see it very well. Let's see here. Yeah, right there. This camera doesn't. There we go, right there. This is an Omron switch. And as you can see, it's just right there. And I put a big ball of electrical tape in the back, all balled up, and then squished everything down to hold it in place. And it's actually, I can really push on that really well, and everything's in there very well. The biggest trick I had was figuring out which one was the common and which one was the hot. But after I tracked everything back through the wiring diagram on the side of the switch, luckily it was on there, I was able to figure out which one the hot was. You may not be able to do this when you're doing this on your replacement deal. Hopefully your wires are color coded and all that kind of stuff, but I imagine you can run into places where it's really hard to find which one was the hot. But once I had figured out which one the hot was, I soldered the commons together, put the switch on the hot, and then just taped everything down in here. And yeah, that was about it. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'm going to be back with part 2. I'm going to show you the operation of this, and I'm going to show you the operation of my miter saw, which I've also done this to.